Hey guys, Robbie Roo here. I've decided to do video game critiques for my and your use. Today, this little series I plan on doing, it's from the Capcom company, and the game I am reviewing, the most popular series, one of the popular series from Capcom, is Resident Evil. Now, many of you, when I say Resident Evil, probably think of 4, 5, the movies with Alice, and a lot of the older players of Resident Evil are thinking of Jill, Chris, Barry, Leon, Claire, Raccoon City, Inflected with Zombies, The Mansion, and Umbrella Labs, but that's all incorporated in the film, but it's not run parallel. It runs clashes. But I figured I'd do one episode on Resident Evil 1, and one on 2, and one on 3, and so on and so forth in that nature. And let's start off with 1, shall we? So you can play to choose as Chris or Jill, and you're inside the Arclay Mountain Woods, and you decide to seek shelter in the Spencer Mansion. I'm just pulling names because I'm using Resident Evil 0 knowledge and the remake of 1 knowledge here, and they gave the mansion a name. And when I played Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut for the PS1, around when it first came out, they didn't give it a name. If they did, I didn't catch it. I just called it the Umbrella Mansion, but apparently it's called Spencer Mansion. And when you play as Resident Evil 1 with Jill or Chris, depending on whoever you are, I recommend Jill, because really, who doesn't like a character that can hold more than 6 items? Sorry, Chris. And a fun thing about playing as Jill is, sure, the storyline is different a lot because you have aid from Barry every now and then. Playing as Jill, the only reason I'm playing as Jill, really, I have no really in-depth perception. I just go with the simple, she can hold 2 more things than Chris, which is good for me. And this will be the magic topic of the Resident Evil 1 through 1 through 4. Yeah, let's go with 1 through 4. The main question on 1 through 4 is the herb. Well, you see how it grows, and you get a good look at it. But 1 through 3, when you get the herb, you get this magic paper that comes out of nowhere. So instantly, when you sit there and think about it, it's like, how do you use this? Do you smoke it? Rub it on the open gape wound? Or, like in Resident Evil 5, spray it on you? Like, leaves automatically turns into, when you spray it through the nozzle, it just gets that crumbled up real quick, and then just like, oh yes, super herb. And the funny thing about 1 is, not only is it the foundation of Resident Evil until 0 came along, but I think they just did it as like a little fluff for money, which sometimes fluff is always a little good. I always suggest reading the Resident Evil novels. Yes, there's novels on the game. I've read a little bit of the second Resident Evil novel, where it takes place in Resident Evil 2 with Leon and Claire. I recommend it. It's a good read. In the first Resident Evil scenario, when you're inside the Spencer Mansion, you go through the door after running from a bunch of zombie dogs, or Cerberuses, whatever you want to call them. I call them zombie dogs because it's, I wouldn't say simpler. Well, it is simpler to call them zombie dogs than Cerberuses, unless there's a lot of you people out there who know the name, which by now I highly doubt no one actually knows the real name. Well, who doesn't know the real name. So, Resident Evil 1, basically in a nutshell, this is basically just me ranting, fun. Resident Evil 1 takes place in July of 1998 in the Arklay Mountains. You run into the Spencer Mansion from escaping zombie services, zombie dogs, whatever you want to call them. Then basically, you start the famous Resident Evil backtracking. Even though in Resident Evil 4, they kind of lure away from it, but it's there essentially by making you do long loops. If you actually sat down and paid attention in Resident Evil 4, you realize you make a bunch of loops back to where you were. But if you're playing Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, you're not doing loops, you're running straight up and down, back and forth. But unless you play Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 the somewhat right way, so you can just basically do mini loops all the way back instead of doing direct trails back and forth. But the awesomeness about doing direct trails back and forth in the first one is, once you find a way to get from one side of the mansion to the other side of the mansion involving the less amount of doors, do it. Always take the less amount of doors routes, unless you don't care for the long door opening sequence. Yeah, and once you get done with the mansion, you have to go into the garden area. And the only way to get into the garden area and move on the game is you gotta find 4 pendants. It's the it's the star pendant, the wind pendant, star, wind, crap, I can't remember the other 2. But you have to get these 4 pendants, put them in a panel on the wall that unlocks the steel door. It's another famous puzzle, or grab key items through various puzzles. You go through the door, you're in the garden house. Well, you're in the garden. You take care of the services out there. You grab a little map here. When you grab the map, you'll see the garden area you're in, and off to the left, the right of the screen. I do believe it's the right of the screen. I've got it actually in front of me right here to give an exact description. You put it to the left or right of the screen, I can't remember, and you'll see a chunk of the garden that you'll be in later, which opens up to the final lab. Sounds familiar? Let's see. Umbrella Mansion? Underneath Umbrella Mansion? Oh, look! It's an Umbrella Lab. You'll get used to going into Umbrella Labs underground in games. Except 4 and 3. There's the... Nope. Scratch that. 3 does it. I don't think 4... Nope, wait. Nope, scratch that. All Resident Evil games involve you going into a lab underground. I'm trying to think of Resident Evil Outbreak File 2. I don't think that one does, but 90% sure. And then after you get into the labs, you fight your way around, and you have to make the Mo disc, and yay. And I found out in Resident Evil 1, you get a lot of Mo discs. Like, in order to activate one sequence before you go to the final, you have to have like 2 Mo discs installed there. Then when you're in the lab, you need like 4 Mo discs just to open up the final door so you can leave. Well, fight Tyrant. Then you fight Tyrant, shoot him with a rocket launcher, then get in a helicopter and leave. But all in all, I say great game. Kind of a poor narration on my part, but I'll do better. And I'd say if you're a first-time Resident Evil player, buy it, so therefore you can get into the story. Or if you have a MU, just download it, play it, learn it. And I'll be back to do some more video game critiquings. I'll be doing all the Resident Evils and some of the Silent Hills, and most definitely the Mega Man to help make Capcom. So this is Robbie Roo, or Sully, and I am done on this narration.